Hi, this is Dave Worden, and today I'd like to talk about what I'll call the hidden Arban book. I hope all of you watching this have an Arban book of your own. It's been around forever. There are some old editions and some new editions. The Arban book is what I call my desert island book. If I were stuck on a desert island and had no other music to practice, if I had the Arban book, I could keep myself busy for quite a while. I've already recorded some exercises from this for you to listen to. But now I want to talk about things that you can get out of this book that'll help make your mind more flexible and also give you better practice opportunities. The exercise I'll talk about here is the first of these single tonguing exercises. I demonstrated this one on a different video. It's number 19 in the Arban book on page 35 of this edition anyway, so it's kind of close to the front. So on this page there are two other exercises. On this one, number 19. The first obvious one would be to play it down an octave. And if you don't know how to do that, start practicing doing that. Just play the note down an octave, think about it for a minute. In this case, the B flat is on top of the bass clef. The lower octave B flat would be on the second line. So that's a fairly simple thing to do, and it's good to know how to transpose octaves. You may need it sometimes in ensemble work. The other thing you can do, if you know how to read treble clef, and if you're a bass clef player and don't know how to read treble clef, you should learn. It'll give you more opportunities in music. Vice versa is true as well with treble clef players. So in this case, it's a bass clef exercise. It starts on the B flat, as I mentioned, sitting on top of the staff, which is the note of the key. It's a B flat in the key of B flat. But now I'm going to pretend this is a treble clef exercise. So that note sitting on top of the staff would be a G in treble clef. So that's what I'm going to play. It's the note of the key. So in my treble clef brain, I'm thinking one sharp. So that obviously becomes a good high range exercise. So in this one middle range exercise, without turning the page, without buying a new book, you can have two additional exercises. One that puts you in the lower range. That's nice if you get tired during your practice as well. You can practice some of the same fingerings even, they change a little bit. And certainly the same rhythmic concept and so on by playing it down an octave and rest your chops and also give you better flexibility down low. By the same token, turning this into treble clef gives me some high register practice. Now, if this were a treble clef book, and I didn't bring my treble clef Arban, I apologize for that, I meant to today actually. Instead I'm going to play a little out of Jenny Jones. It's an old solo by Rimmer, a brass band solo for cornet or euphonium. I'm just going to play the melody right now. It's in treble clef, as I said, in the key of C, so no sharps or flats. So what can I do with this simple treble clef song? As the bass clef example I gave before, I can play it down an octave. That's a mental challenge. That's good. Grows your brain cells up here, I'm sure. In this case, it becomes even more of a challenge because the bottom note of the melody is a C in treble clef, the first ledger line below the staff, which means I'll have to play a melody smoothly down to a pedal C, which is a little harder. We're not used to doing that and coming back through the fourth valve register. For 3-valve instruments, this would not be practical. So I've played it in the normal position where it's written. I've played it down an octave. We could also play it up an octave. There's one additional thing we could try on this one, which is to treat it as though it were bass clef. So in this case, there's no sharps or flats, it's in the key of C. The first note is on the second ledger line, a G, which is the fifth of the key of C. So if I look at this as bass clef, that second line then becomes a low B flat, or a low B of some kind. And because it's the fifth of the key, that means we're going to go up to, for our key signature, the E flat. So that's going to put me in 3 flats. So just as on the piano, which is a C instrument, all the white keys on the piano are what you need to play a scale in C. So on the euphonium, in treble clef, the C, which is really a concert B flat, the written C in treble clef, is open. So that's the most natural scale. So that's what they're trying to do with the treble clef music. So while we're talking about ways you can use written notes in different ways to help expand your practice opportunities, let's talk about one more that I think is quite important. The euphonium is a B flat instrument. The open note on the euphonium, or the actual fundamental, the lowest note on the euphonium, open, that's a concert B flat. When we see that written in our treble clef music, it's transposed for us so that we see a C, a written C, which is the most logical open note. Just as it's a white key on the piano, it's an open note on the euphonium. So the music is transposed for our brains to absorb it more easily, perhaps. That's great while we're playing a band part or a solo written for piano and trumpet or piano and euphonium treble clef. The problem arises, and I've had to deal with this on many of the videos I've got up on YouTube now. When I'm playing off the piano part, I can't play those notes and have them come out right because they'll sound a step lower. It's a B flat instrument, so when I play a C, it sounds as a B flat. That means if I want to play with the piano part, I've got to think the note one step higher. So my written G, the pickup in this piece, would become a written A. The key of C, no sharps or flats, now I'm going to have to move up one step as well to the key of D. So I'm going to add 2 sharps to the key. And that way, if I can read the piece that way, then it'll match what the piano does. I do recommend for treble clef players especially that you practice that way. It could enable you to fit into more ensembles or perform, as I have done again on YouTube, right off of a piano score, which often does not contain a transposed part for our convenience. Even then, if it's a piano vocal score, they'll often contain a treble clef part for the vocal. That means you bass clef players out there, if you're thinking in bass clef, that's great if you're playing along with the piano's bass line because you're a concert pitch instrument when you're playing in the bass clef world. The piano, of course, is concert pitch and you'll match. But to play off the melody, you'll have to figure out a way that makes sense to you to see a note written as a C, and then to think what that would look like in bass clef. Or if you just think note names as you play, then you could follow it fairly easily. But our minds work differently, so different bass clef players may have to come up with a different system. Anyway, that's a little more about how you can use the music in front of you to do a lot more than it was ever intended to do. And it's free. Thanks for listening.